Hi, and welcome back to another tutorial by Mrs. E Science Geek. Today, I'm going to be taking you through the web-based version of Stellarium. Stellarium is a software that turns your computer into a planetarium. It's software that I use almost every day in my astronomy course because my astronomy course meets at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you can't really get out and see a lot of the celestial sphere when the sun is up. So, uh, just to start, you are going to navigate to Stellarium, Stellarium hyphen web.org. And this is going to take you to the web-based version of this program. There is a downloadable version of this as well, but our Chromebooks at school do not allow for us to download a lot of programs onto them. So we generally use the web-based version of this program. So it just doesn't have all the features that the downloadable version has. And as you can see over here on the left-hand side, there's also an app that you can download onto your phone, which is really handy if you're going out and you're doing some stargazing at night to have with you. But let's get into it. So over here, again, we're looking at this left-hand sidebar. We have a couple of tools that we can use. The first thing we're going to look at is the view settings. So the view settings allows us to turn on and off different features. So we can turn on and off the Milky Way, and so whether or not you see the arm of the Milky Way. And then what's helpful, especially in some of our astronomy courses, is to turn on or off the ecliptic and the meridian lines. So depending on what you are doing, that is helpful to know so that students can make some reference points from there. Another helpful tool is this Planets Tonight. And so it will tell you exactly what planets are going to be visible at your location tonight. And we can see tonight the moon is going to be out until almost about midnight. Mercury is going to be right after sunset. I should be able to see Mercury right at the horizon. It'll be setting at that point. And then it'll rise again just before sunrise. Jupiter will be up in the early evening hours. Mars, Venus, and Saturn will be visible in the early morning just before sunrise tomorrow. So these are some great things, just are really quick to see what planets might be out in the night sky. So I'm going to click on these three lines up here in the upper left, and that's going to close out that so that I can view this full screen. So here in Stellarium, we have this concave circle here. This concave circle represents our horizon line. And if we use our mouse so we can drag this around, you can see how we can move this around and change our view setting. It also gives us our cardinal directional points. So we have our north here, our west, east, and then again, if we drag it around, we can get our south view. So this is helpful, depending on which direction you are facing, to help orient yourself to what you're looking at in the sky. So here, I'm going to go back to the north side. Another great tool is that it will geolocate you. So down here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen has a spot so you can geolocate yourself. Here it says I'm accessing this near Amherst, New Hampshire, which is pretty accurate. I'm not in Amherst, but it's pretty accurate. I'm only a couple miles away, so it's locating me. If I were to actually put my actual location in here, the sky is not actually going to change because I'm at the same latitude as Amherst, so I'm only a couple miles away. So I'm not going to change this. But this is great if you are doing a project and you want to look at what was the sky back in 1492 when Columbus was sailing the ocean blue. And you can see what some of the celestial navigation objects might have been that Columbus was looking at. One of the things that um, you can't do with Stellarium, and that has to do with the time and date, or is, I guess I would say, a downfall of the web-based version. You can do this with the desktop version, but you can't go past 0 degree common era, or zero common era, sorry. And so that's as far back as you can go. You can go back to BCE, before common era, in the desktop version. So it's just a little bit of a limitation with using the web-based version. So, moving on to that, here we have the ability to be able to change the time and date that we're viewing our night sky. Another slight limitation, it's sometimes it's a little bit annoying, but in order to change the time and date, you can't just manually change and punch in the date that you want to look at. You do have to hold your mouse down on the arrow in order to go back in time. But this is really helpful. I recently used this in my astronomy class, when we were talking about how the North Star has changed over time when we're talking about precession. And you can go back and you can look at, specifically Polaris, and how it has moved across the sky, and you can gather the coordinates for that. And I'll show you some of that shortly as well. So this is great to be able to move back and forth. One of the things I do want to mention, though, is that if you're trying to get really, really close to 0 CE, you want to slow down when you're doing that, because it'll automatically revert. Once you go past 0 CE, it goes immediately to 1850. I'm not sure why it chooses 1850 and not the present time, but it immediately goes back to 1850. So you have to go all the way back through it again. But you can go as far forward as you want. Um, and so we can go back. I'm going to revert it to real time, and you can go ahead in time as well. You can also change the time that you're viewing. I generally tell my students to look at like midnight, 2 a.m., and when they're doing and gathering some of their data here, so we can see what is it going to look like in the future. And you also can take a look at different events that have happened in the past, like eclipses, and you can actually see the sun and the moon interacting in this, which is really, really fun. So some of the other tools we have here, we can turn on and off our asterisms for our constellations. You can also turn on the constellation art, which will show you what those mythological creatures and beings are in relation to those constellations. Um, you can turn on and off your atmosphere, so you can see, how the atmosphere kind of changes what our view is. You can turn on and off your landscape, so you can take away your horizon line. One of the other things that's really helpful, especially in my astronomy class, is being able to turn on and off the azimuthal grid as well as the equatorial grid. And we have most recently been using the equatorial grid, because we can see here, this bright little dot here in the center that's really, really close to our celestial North Pole. That's our Polaris. And so that's helpful to kind of see and orient yourself to what you're looking at in the sky. You can also turn it on and off deep sky objects. I tend to just leave this on. And then what's helpful, and this is really helpful when you're using the app on your phone, is you can turn on night mode. And so this helps your eyes adjust in order for what you're seeing out there. You can quickly adjust to the night sky and what you're seeing. So how do you locate different things in Stellarium? So, right, because it's not just about what we're seeing in our current view. You have a search bar up here, and you can search for anything. In my astronomy course, we use the astronomy picture of the day, and we locate that using Stellarium every day as well. So today we looked at the Seagull Nebula. So I can type in the Seagull Nebula, and it's going to tell us here, and it's going to immediately take us to where the Seagull Nebula is. And here it's going to locate us just below the horizon. So in this case, I'm going to take the horizon off so I can see exactly where it is. So it's going to be just below a horizon currently, so we can't see it right this second at 6, 7 o'clock at night. But it's located relatively close to Sirius, and we can look at the constellation. It's kind of in between the constellations of Canis Major and Monoceros. And so we can make some relationships like that. The deep sky objects are going to be these large galaxies that you can indicate here, like Pleiades over here. This galaxy within Rigel which is the Messier galaxy. And what's really fun is when you select and you search for these different things, over in the left hand side, it gives you all sorts of information about that celestial object. So here we're at Procyon, and we can see that it's also known here is our Bayer designation. So our Alpha Canis Minoris, which is it's the brightest star in Canis Minor. Um, and it gives you all sorts of different coordinates. It gives you the spectral costs of what it is, what its magnitude is, how far it is. But then what we've been using a lot has been this right ascension and declination, as well as our azimuthal coordinates. And then we've been using that to plot. But then it also gives you a rise and a set time. So it rose at 2:44 in the afternoon. It's going to set at 3:19 at night. And then it pulls some information from Wikipedia. So there's a lot of information that this program provides you. And my rectangle is still sticking up there. So a lot of information that this program gives you is really fun to play around with.